Hello, welcome to the Motorsport Review. I am your host, Perry Brown, and we've got an Italian Grand Prix to talk about, amongst other things. Maybe ethics might come into it, might mention the trolley problem, if you know that one. Joining me tonight on this recording has joined me for a few before. So a returning guest this time is the brilliant Eddie. Eddie, how are you doing?
I'm doing good as always. How about you?
Yeah, very well. Do you know what? I think you're the first person to ask me how I'm doing back. So thank you. Yeah, I'm doing very well. Things are progressing at work and going along nicely. And I'm here talking about Formula One. And McLaren had another flawless weekend and nothing went wrong. So yeah, easy. Yes, we can't progress any further without talking about McLaren, can we? I think that has to be the start topic of the day.
Oh, you're starting out with a bang.
Got to go straight there. I was debating it, putting it at the end, but I thought people just fast forward the rest of the stuff. Like, yeah, the rest of the race. And poor Max Verstappen. It's like I liken it to, like, you know, when there's like that sister of the groom or the bride that makes the whole wedding about them. It's like, I know your bridesmaid's color code is green. I still want to wear white. That was like McLaren. This was Max Verstappen's race, and McLaren was still like, right, let's do something. Let's still make us the talking point. So I feel bad for Max Verstappen. We will get back to him. But yes, let's start with the McLaren shenanigans later on. I want you to have the first say. I don't want it to be me. I'm going to put you in the deep end here. Would you like to sum up the events and give us a little insight into your thoughts? Straight into the deep end. This the idea of hosting. I get to just push all of the weight onto you. So go, tell us what happened and what was your views on it.
Okay, so honestly, we've seen that McLaren had an amazing weekend, like all weekend long, a great weekend and great qualifying and everything. And obviously, we've seen that during the race, things didn't go so well. Mainly with the 2 pit stops. And I think this is the talking point that everyone's been raging on the internet.
Everyone getting along online famously well.
Absolutely. all love and joy and harmony. How do you resume this? How do you even resume this? Because it was such chaos within 53 laps? How
do you know what? Generally, the race, like there was a definite lull, wasn't there, in the middle? The gaps built out. It was heading to an end where not a lot was happening. And then, as I say, McLaren then turned around and said, "Well, we'll do something then." So yeah, it was heading towards the end. McLaren hadn't pitted by, I think, the first pit stop was obviously Oscar Piastri on lap 46. Comes in. And no problems. 1.91 seconds. A fantastic pit stop.
Fastest pit stop of the race, no?
Yeah, of the year so far, I believe. Brilliant. So all they had to do was repeat that for Lando Norris next time round, which, of course, they didn't. And we then get to a situation which we've seen before, or something very similar to Hungary 2024, where they've accidentally inverted the cars through the pit stop. So what was when you saw Lando Norris emerge from the pits in 3rd place behind Piastri? First thoughts from you. What were you thinking at that point? Were you thinking McLaren have messed up? McLaren are going to invert this? What was your thought straight away at that point?
I never really thought that McLaren would ask the driver, like Lando and Oscar, to swap places right after. I saw the pit stop and I was like, oh no, this is not good for McLaren for the race that they've had, because they've had a great race so far. And then one slight error in the last 8 laps. I knew that something was gonna go wrong. And I knew that it was like not the pit stop they were expecting, if I can say it like that. But I never would have thought that we would have a repeat of Hungary 2024 where they would ask to swap the places for whatever reason. And when they mentioned on radio Hungary 2024, I was like, oof, maybe not the move, maybe not the best move, but I don't know. I'm not obviously I'm not the biggest McLaren fan, but I don't think this should have gone that way. And I think that despite the fact that Hungary 2024 was controversial, this race that we've had in Monza probably shouldn't have been as controversial. So I never would have expected McLaren to ask for the switch.
Interesting. Yeah, I think a majority of people online obviously agree with that view that, you know, team orders ruined the Italian Grand Prix, upset the order of things. They shouldn't have intervened, and that this was obviously bad luck on Lando's part, so he should just swallow it up. And I honestly, and I'm a McLaren fan first and foremost before I'm a Lando or Piastri fan. And I just want to caveat that as well by saying that if I had to choose which way it go, I'd choose it to go Lando's way. But I'm like 51%, 49%, and it's only because he's been there a longer time and because he's British. But I didn't say that. The Brit bias doesn't exist. So it's nothing to team first. And as soon as Lando emerged from the pits in third place, before he got to turn one, my immediate thought was they're going to invert that. They're going to turn that around. I am of the belief that this was purely a McLaren-made problem. You know, Lando did nothing wrong, and Piastri did nothing right, if you like, to gain that place. The drivers had very little decision in that. And again, looking online, where people are going, well, Lando chose to pit second. Well, if he pits first, if he takes the option, goes, no, I'll pit first, and the mistake still happens, you know, the wheel gun jams, and he comes out and he's had a 6-second pit stop. Well, next round, Piastri pits and he still jumps it. So whether he chose to go first or second, I want to take that away from it. I don't think it was a factor. It wasn't a strategic call. It was just literally the way round that they pitted. And yeah, unlike Hungary 2024, where Norris performed the undercut, he had to put in that qualifying lap to get ahead of Piastri. Piastri didn't do that here. So as I say, I know I'm in the minority, but I still think it was the right thing to do, which is where we come to the trolley problem. If you know the trolley problem, if you're into your ethics, this is that one where, you know, the trolley's going to hit and kill 5 people, or you can flick a switch and it only takes out 1 person. And if you like, with this one here, you've got, well, the tram was going to hit Piastri. McLaren accidentally knocked it, and now it's going to hit Lando, and they go, oh, and undo it and pull the trolley back. That's where it's at for me. It's an ethics debate. So I don't know. I think McLaren were damned if they did and damned if they didn't. Especially last week, Lando Norris's car packs up, and people online going, "Oh, it's clear they favour Piastri because they clearly blew up his car on purpose." So it's something like this. It was prone to just being piled on online. So for the second week in a row, if you're one of those people online on the conspiracy saying that they now favour Lando this week, then please get off your soapbox. Please just get behind the team, because they're trying everything they can to make this a fair fight. And I can only hope that when the Constructors' Championship is sealed up, probably in Baku now, that it will be even fair. I think they'll take any stops that they might have had off, and then it's down to the drivers. Whether they come 7th and 8th, that's up to the drivers. Like, let them do their own race. So yeah, I almost don't want to get bogged down, but I'm aware I've been talking for like 5 minutes, and you're just sort of waiting patiently.
I'm probably going to start yapping right after, because this is probably the one thing that I've noted down, like, of what I wanted to say 100% for sure, for me not to forget it. Because in a way that I agree with you, this is not a driver problem, it's a team problem. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, and my opinion still, like, I'll stand on my opinion. McLaren's issue with being decisive is what's effing up the drivers. In my opinion, you're right that like Lando had the place and he's the one who qualified second and he had a great quali and he's the one who had been second during the entire race. That I completely agree. However, you have your two drivers are number one, number two in the drivers' championship right now. One with what, 30 something points ahead. Before Monza, it was 34.
Yes. Yep.
And this driver has now the opportunity to gain even more points by being second. Why would you not prioritize that driver? I know that like they're somewhat close in the championship and you want to give your driver every chance. But at one point, I think McLaren has to like stand their ground and say, we have to prioritize one driver for the end of the season. Because when you look at Max's results and when you look at the outcomes of the last two unfortunate races that McLaren has had, it is still mathematically possible for Max to win this championship. And I think that McLaren's indecisiveness is what's going to cost them the championship. If they don't, at one point, just have a talk with the drivers and say, so depending on the last few results, we're going to prioritize Lando, we're going to prioritize Piastri in order to secure a double championship for McLaren. Because this is not working. And I think that this is what cost McLaren the opportunity for a World Drivers' Championship last season. It's the fact that they could not get their head out of their butts and say, we're going to prioritize Lando. And I'm a Red Bull fan. I've said it once, I'll say it again. Red Bull is a toxic team, but at least they have results and they've never been hypocritical in terms of deciding who was the driver they wanted to prioritize. They know who they want to prioritize, and they knew that it was going to be Max, and they knew that they were going to plan their strategy in the sense of wanting Max to win. McLaren is a toxic team, very heavy quotes on this, in a way that they're gaslighting their driver and guilt-tripping their driver into complying into team orders. And I think that's the issue. And I think that this, despite their amazing results, could cost them the championship ultimately if they continue to be indecisive and if they continue to gaslight the drivers into thinking that team orders is the way to go. Team orders have been controversial last season. They've been controversial this season. People say they should happen. It shouldn't happen. At one point, the team even said, we don't have team orders. We have team orders. Decide, make a decision, a concrete decision, and go with it and live with the consequences, positive or negative, of this decision.
Yeah, I mean, so again, a lot of emphasis was placed on people going, oh, look at Hungary 2024 when they should have backed Lando. I think the landscape of the championship was that bit different, that on that day I said the same, like that I, to a fault, think McLaren will always go and look at the championship and go, nope, both drivers can mathematically win it. Yes, one only needs to get 10 points, but the other one could still win the last 45 races and win. So we're going to be completely fair between the two of them. If it's mathematically on, then it's on, and like end of the day. Whereas, we've seen Ferrari with Michael Schumacher going back to 2003, I think, where Schumacher had won the first 3 races. And in Austria, which I believe was the 4th race, they had Rubens Barrichello leading the race and Schumacher second. Now, most people would sit there and go, well, just let Barrichello have his win. He's beating his teammate. Happy days. But no, they inverted the results. And I think that is the crux of it. You've got to have, to use team orders, you've got to have 2 things. You've got to have a reason. And on that day, Ferrari didn't, in my opinion. Schumacher's contracted number 1. That's not a reason. In the same way that McLaren don't appear to have contracted number 1. So you've got to have a reason, and you've got to have the opportunity. They're running 2nd and 3rd on the road. That's the opportunity. If Lando's stop is so bad that he's behind Leclerc, obviously Piastri isn't going to drop to 4th place and give Leclerc 2nd. So they need the opportunity as well as the reason. And I think just on this occasion, they both lined up. I think in Hungary, the reason was the bit where I was a bit like, well, he did undercut him, regardless of whether he pitted first to protect from, I think it was George Russell on that day, and to make sure they got a 1-2. The reason was the bit where I was like, no, I think you do have to look at Lando's chances. Just that he's about 60 points behind Verstappen, sure, but Piastri was another 60 behind. It's going to be tricky. There's 8 races left. And someone made a very good point and said, if this was the last race of the season, would they have asked him to swap? I mean, yeah, precedent is so good up to a point, isn't it? So I just think it's so tricky. And to say that they manufactured this situation, it's just a wheel gun. It's just a sticky wheel gun. We all saw it. It was flashing red and green. It wasn't ready. It could happen. As I said, it could happen at any point. It could have happened to Piastri's car 70 seconds earlier. It was the same wheel gun. It was the same wheel man. So take that out of the equation. It wasn't one of their pit crew. So it's tricky. It's so tricky. But I'm glad that we opposed on that one. We've resolved that very nicely by not resolving it at all. The internet can have their say for 2 weeks, and we'll get to Azerbaijan, and we'll have moved on to the next problem that arises from trying to have 2 drivers in the championship. But it is interesting that you're still very much of the mindset Verstappen is in this title fight.
I mean, call me delusional, but I think that if McLaren continues to have very unfortunate races like the past 2 ones that they've had, and if they continue to have like issues with strategy and team orders and like prioritizing drivers, then maybe this unfortunate series of event could result in a Verstappen championship. I'm not like very optimistic about it, but mathematically it's still possible.
And I think if anyone on that grid can do it, then Max Verstappen is probably the guy. And that brings us nicely. You see how I caveated it round to Max Verstappen quite nicely. Yes, it was his wedding day. We're not going to talk about his toxic sister that's trying to spoil it with her white dress. We're talking about Max Verstappen now. And I mean, he won by 19 seconds. He was in a league of his own. The Red Bull domination is so boring, and I'm ready for it to end.
I was not bored at all. No, but that qualifying lap on Saturday was frankly amazing, and I'm sad that the way that the broadcast did it, because it was so sure that Lando was getting pole position, not being able to see the end of the lap and seeing the McLaren garage. I will be honest, quite frustrating me quite a little bit. But it was a nice surprise to see just a little time and see Max take pole position. That was frankly amazing. And the race was a bit stressful at the beginning with like the whole, gotta swap positions and then but it was an amazing race. And I think Max proved during this race that you can never count him out, even with probably the 4th fastest car on the grid right now. And,
I'd go with that. I got to be honest, even seeing him take pole position, I was still messaged our McLaren chat and said, he's got less wing. He's going to burn through those tyres. And Monza typically is a one-stop race, and tyres aren't typically what you speak about. But when they showed that slow-mo replay in the race of that front right, and it was not graining, because that's when it's cold, blistering when it's hot. And it had that band. That ban, as Martin Brundle was talking, I don't know if you have Martin. Anyway, as Martin Brundle said on the broadcast I was watching, I don't know if that's the same as you. He was saying that's a really bad sign. Graining you can work through. Blistering comes from the core of the tire, and you just never get rid of it. And I sat there and said, "There's still 20 odd laps to go here. It's not over." And the gap did come down from 6 to about 4.5 seconds. So I was still thinking, here it comes. This is him paying for that extreme setup. But I mean, Laura Mecki said, he put us in an extreme setup window, and it worked. And again, that can only be on him. And now we can say for sure that Red Bull are building the car entirely around Max Verstappen. I'm trying to deflect so much off McLaren. It's unreal.
trying to spark another controversy to like cover the other one. It had been I watched the race yesterday probably for the first time on the F1 TV broadcast, because bless my friend, bless her heart, she was amazing to give me like her password and her account so I could watch it with no ads. And yeah, so I heard Martin Brundle say, yeah, this is bad. And I was texting my friend. I was like, oh no, this, there it goes. There goes the win. If he doesn't pit now, it's done. It's over. And well, the rest is history. But I was stressing out, very much stressing out.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I watched the IndyCar the week before where we had Alex Palou had a tyre blowout, but he happened to time it when he was coming into the pit lane because that's Alex Palou's luck in 2025. And I remember watching it, and about 20 odd laps later, Pato O'Ward just drives almost into a wall, and I said straight away, this is a puncture, and you suddenly start to go like that was on my mind, you know, seeing this tyre that it could just happen at any point, and that tyres still blow up. As good as Pirelli are at stopping it from happening these days, it still does happen. And I just looked at it and just thought, like, I don't want it for Max because of how good he was, but at the same time I was then staring at another McLaren 1-2 thinking, well, that's obviously the outcome that I would like as a fan of. But I was glad that it didn't. You know, you can put everything on Max, you know, to win it by 19 seconds, to push the team to do that change that he wanted. I will make a note here about Norris as well. He got his elbows out at turn 1.
Mm-hmm.
And Verstappen did the smart thing and didn't get tangled up in it. I thought they both were uncharacteristic in that moment. You know, Norris being punchy and Verstappen not rising to it and just saying, okay, you go ahead. And I thought at that point, Norris was gone. And no, he just, you know, 6 laps later, just got him back, clinically got him back.
Yeah, that was very impressive to watch. And I think this is the difference between like Max fighting for an actual championship versus Max knowing that he might not have as much of a chance as he did like in the previous years. He's more lenient on these things. He's gonna be like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. I'm just gonna avoid drama and swap the places, and I'm just gonna get him right after. And that's what he did. And yeah, I think it would. I don't know if it would be like too far stretched out to say that like Max has grown a lot this season in terms of like maturity and in terms of like being more chill in the races and not always chasing the win because he knows which battles to fight and which battles to like kind of let go.
I was going to say exactly that there was a point towards the end of last season, Max had this championship lead, but the car wasn't as good. You know, McLaren ended the season with the fastest car. And we got to Austin or Mexico, one of the two, where we had the Norris versus Verstappen incidents. And I remember, it may not have been there, but he came on the radio and said something along the lines of, this is what I have to do. If you don't give me the car that can win the race, I have to drive like this. I have to get my elbows out. And I thought, that is not the words of a champion. You know, some days you have to accept that you're second best, gather the points for second best, and work on being the fastest next weekend. So for him to arrive in Monza this weekend, he hasn't won since Imola. For him to have the confidence to turn around and go, okay, Norris is back through in the quickest car of 2025. To have the confidence to go, but I'll get him back. I like that's the Verstappen that we want to see more of. You know, the level-headed, not going to lose, not going to let the red mist descend. Calculated, like, as I say, confident.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice to see how more, I would say, relaxed and confident Max was this season compared to the last few where he was just in a fighting mode over and over. I think that, but he said it himself in interviews. I've achieved everything that I want to achieve so far. The rest is just pure fun, and I'm going to continue racing as long as I have fun. So I think that this season is him accepting the fact that he cannot always be in the most dominant car and just having pure fun. And it sometimes results in him gossiping on radio with his engineer about McLaren.
Just trying to get them at each other.
That was so funny.
Never mind games. I thought it was clever.
His engineer just like spilling the tea, and then Max replying and saying, "But this is none of our business." Was so fun to watch.
Wasn't it? I genuinely thought he was trying to, rile up
Oh,
Piastri a bit to be like,
for
oh, he
sure.
gave it up. God, that's not what I'd do, Piastri.
Just because Lando
Oscar,
had a
my old
slow
mate.
stop, that was. But this is Max, and I think Max said something along the same lines also last season in a similar situation or something with Lando as well. Always trying to kind of like jab a little bit at McLaren, and I think,
and again, we were sat there going like, this is Max Verstappen, who would basically make Perez move out of the way any chance he had. Was asked to help him get second place in the championship. Went, never ask me to do that again. And I thought, okay, this guy's benefited from team orders massively in the past.
for sure, that's for sure.
But yes, I was gonna. I've forgotten the point I was going to make. Excellent. It was Verstappen having fun this weekend. No Formula One, so he's going to be racing GT cars.
Yeah,
not as Franz Hermann, I don't believe either in Nürburgring. So yes, I forgot to bring that up, but yeah, that was announced today. He's going to be racing a GT car.
I'm going to attempt to find a way to watch this race because I'm really curious to see if like what his results are going to be based on like the testing that he did back in May and the fact that he's like driving another like type of car. I'm gonna attempt to find some sort of sketchy illegal website to watch it on.
If only you knew of a podcast that on the off weekends for Formula One decide to like watch other series. You think of one?
If only.
Yeah, I've actually already got something lined up for next week that I'll might get to later. I'm debating whether to say what it is or just keep it as a surprise. If you want to know what it is, I'll keep it a surprise. And if you want to find out what it is, like and follow and see. I've done it again for this. I hate doing it, but it's now intertwined into the episode quite nicely in a way that leads on to the next thing, which is the Ferrari Mercedes sort of fight, more like a parade. But I wanted to mention it because it's the home race of Ferrari. It never really materialized, did it? This fight, but it brings us to qualifying quite nicely. So Hamilton had this penalty lingering over him. I thought wrongly, of course, from the Dutch Grand Prix, and I was absolutely certain once he got through to Q3 that his goal would then be to help Leclerc, and they didn't take this option. And I was a bit surprised that they didn't do that. And luckily, we didn't see any shenanigans. People going through chicanes, trying to drive too slowly to let everyone ahead. So it was good in that regards. But yeah, were you surprised not to see Hamilton give him the toe?
Well, I didn't really pay attention to Ferrari's strategy during qualifying, but it was
Ferrari don't pay much attention to their strategy sometimes.
No, exactly. But it was actually but it was actually surprising not to see like at least the team do everything in their power to help the one driver that has a chance for sure at a pole. Because we know Hamilton, even if he had that pole, he would have been back at 6th. So you have another driver that actually has a concrete chance. Why not take it? Why not seize the opportunity? I agree that this is quite peculiar in a way that why not seize this opportunity if you know you have it, especially if you're like at home. It's your home race. You're in Monza with the Tifosi. I would go all out to try to have like the best qualifying possible and help as much as possible to have like a Ferrari front row.
Yeah, I mean, even Leclerc on pole and then he slips away to 4th or 5th in the race would have given the Tifosi something.
Yeah,
just a pole position in a season that hasn't really been pole position. Not even that many podiums, but Leclerc was there. Again, with all the things that were going on at McLaren, Leclerc was right behind, and he was the one that sort of triggered them to have to cover someone because he was in that fight. He was in that range where the McLarens weren't of Verstappen. There was that 19-second gap. He was only 3 seconds or so behind before they came out. When they came out from those pit stops, as botched as one of them may have been, and so yeah, Leclerc was there. He just had an anonymous race, and fourth has probably got to be the worst place for Ferrari to finish in Monza, because you might as well have, if you're 19th, you can go, well, we weren't close. To finish fourth, to be that close and not get on that podium, I felt for him. I had him down as my prediction for pole position. Apologies if people got caught out on Instagram by that. My swift editing, I had a few people say, "Oh, I need your lottery numbers." Had missed that I'd completely edited those out. I still had him on the podium, even when after qualifying, I still had him on the podium, getting one. I said there'd be a safety car, he'd get the jump on Piastri. I'm not a Ferrari fan, like, at all. I'm a McLaren fan. They're the rivals. They're the enemies. They always have been, always will be. Not a Ferrari fan. But there's something right about a Ferrari driver being on that podium, standing above the Tifosi. I wanted this so bad for him.
Me too. Especially knowing last year he won at Monza from P4. I had some hopes. I was like, hey, might happen again, and I've seen like little graphs of people saying, oh, I think like Belgium, he finished like 14, and then this year as well, same result. Oh, Monza finished P1 but started P4, and I was like, oh, could work. But the McLaren is just too fast, and it's sad to see like one of the two Ferrari drivers, well, actually both Ferrari drivers, miss out on the podium, but especially Leclerc. Sissi was actually so close, and I thought at one point maybe he had a chance to catch up on Piastri, but this never happened.
Almost. As I say, he was in that race. He was in that battle. But Hamilton came through nice. It was good to see that, again, the opening exchanges, he was making moves. He made those first laps work, as well as Piastri and Leclerc having a really good back. There were some really good overtakes in the first 10 laps. Then it quieted down. But yeah, he was making moves, and it was really good to see. And then obviously it emphasized the gap again. So you had Verstappen, as is quite often then the case. Well, normally it's the McLarens, but then you've got normally the Mercedes versus Ferrari sort of top of the midfield, not quite in the race with the McLarens or Verstappen at the top, and then the rest. It's not the case in qualifying. It's so close yet again in qualifying, but certainly during the race, there's this gap that exists, and Hamilton was able to just sort of break through, get past Alonso, Bortoleto, and then just sit in this gap and go, well, now it's a Mercedes. Now it's a proper car I've got to catch. I'll take that. That's a good finish right here. Yeah. So I'm gonna get to turn 4, and I realised when I put all my notes together that there was quite a few different things and shenanigans going on at turn 4. And once again, I've got the FIA driving standards ready to go, primed, because there was quite a few incidents here. We will start with, I don't know if you remember this, because I'm looking at the notes thinking, did he? Ocon getting a 5-second penalty for forcing Stroll off at turn 4. I believe this was where they're side by side, and he just edges him across onto the grass, and then he drives off. So he got a 5-second penalty for that one. Do we agree with that one? Do we think that was the right decision on that?
I don't see any reason to disagree with the penalty. It seemed like pretty obvious that Stroll had no space to make his turn easily, and it was forced. My first thought when I saw the penalty was, the Ocon penalty memes are back.
Everything's right in the world if Ocon's got a 5-second penalty.
That was my only thought. So no, I didn't see reason to disagree with that. I think it seemed to be quite clear in my opinion.
Need to make a mark then. So the FIA got something right. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, let's mark it on the calendar. September 7th, 2025.
Do you know what immediately came to me was Leclerc versus Hamilton in 2019, and he did the same move, and this was at the sort of time when they were working out whether they have this yellow card system. Don't know if you remember this. And Leclerc forced Hamilton off the road. Hamilton went, what the hell, he has to give me that place. And they went, they gave Leclerc this yellow flag and said, not yellow flag, yellow card. They almost did a warning, but not quite a warning. It was really strange. And they basically were like, don't do that again. And everyone was like, what is this? It was the one and only time as well that they did it. And it was seen by some that it was just because you can't punish a Ferrari at Monza. Moving on. Lawson and Tsunoda then make contact at turn 4. This just seemed to be Lawson just getting into the side of Tsunoda. He gave the place back. So there was I don't think there was any penalty for this, but it just seemed really clumsy.
I get now why this wasn't investigated, because I feel like I seem to remember me texting my friend, how was this not investigated? But I was not aware that Lawson had given back the place to Tsunoda. So they dropped the investigation, because I was texting my friend. I was like, that was a clear contact. What happened?
I don't know if it's a factor. Probably is, but a racing bull and a Red Bull, we know that they're pretty much sort of the same team, maybe. So yeah, they probably said, don't worry, please don't investigate it. So yeah, it all seemed to resolve itself nicely. There was no bits of carbon fiber being shattered down the track. So again, I think right decision, just let it be. So then we get to the one where everyone's saying, well, let it be. Like Sainz for the second week in a row in a collision, which everyone online is saying this is a classic racing incident. I've got these rules, and I looked at them about 10 minutes before we went to record, and I saw a line that I suddenly went, okay. So give me your thoughts on this. So Sainz is going around the outside, he turns in, there's contact. Behrman gets a 10-second penalty. Thoughts?
Well, I'm part of the little group of people that said that last week Sainz should not have gotten a penalty. So one of my first thoughts when I saw that penalty that Behrman got was, is this the FIA's way of kind of like apologizing for refusing to speak to Carlos last week after the race? But honestly, I should have investigated more on this, because to me, I really, really thought that Sainz was going to get a penalty. But with all the details coming out and people analyzing this, it seems that there was more to it, but I can't exactly pinpoint on it. So I'm not going to really have an opinion on this, just because I feel like I don't have all of the details needed to form an opinion without getting trashed on.
So last weekend, if you didn't watch of course you watched the Dutch Grand Prix review on Motorsport.com.
I am.
So I said it should have been a penalty, but to the driving standards that in front of me, it was a penalty. Sainz didn't have the right to racing room. We all know that Formula One's better, racing's better if you just have a rule that says you have to give each other room, full stop. So they need to sort this. And I was proven right. I thought if I go to this and I have a read through, I'm going to find something, and I found it. So it has been established from points A to B. A is overtaking on the inside, B is overtaking the outside, A to B below, that an overtaking driver has priority. It is the responsibility of the defending driver to avoid a collision or forcing off the overtaking driver. So once Sainz was ahead enough of the corner, it's then on Ollie Behrman to avoid the crash. Again, utter rubbish. Utter rubbish. Because watching this, Sainz goes from the outside and he goes, I'm just going to take the racing line. And he turns straight across the front of Behrman, who, for some reason, didn't disappear into thin air, and the contact's made. And I think I was watching this thinking, I thought Sainz should get a penalty.
Mm-hmm.
The rules are broken. I'm binning the rules. I need the rules for this very reason, because they help me understand, but they're wrong. They're just wrong.
The rules are there, but the rules are not necessarily right.
No, absolutely not. The stewards want to sit there in their room and have an exact point where they go, okay, right, was he this? Yes. Like a flowchart. Was he this? Yes. Okay. Was he on the inside? Yes. Okay. Excellent. But this penalty to this person. And it just gives them the right answer every time. But that isn't what happens. That isn't racing. Sometimes someone's on the inside. Sometimes the track is a chicane. Sometimes it's a hairpin. It's just stupid.
It's often circumstantial. And I think that this should be a point that could be revised with the new regulations in 2026. The rules should be also revised, or just maybe a little bit more detail, or instead of it being just like a list or just a general statement. Because the context is always going to be different. You can't expect to always have the same context.
I mean, that's why it just used to work. And they said, you just got to give room. You can drive, if you're defending, you can drive all the way to the white line. You can drive all the way back minus a car's width. You had to leave a car's width if they were significantly alongside. You couldn't drive them off the road. You had to leave room. That's it. It's just, that's what I feel like I'm going crazy, because it's like, it just worked. And then suddenly they were like, oh no, actually, we got to do something. Changed it. And I don't know. Do you know what? As well as changing the driving standards, why didn't they make the races shorter? Because I mean, I don't know about anyone else, but I only tune in for highlights. So,
oh my god, can I
Flex.
yap on this? Can I because I have a lot to
Please.
say on this. I think what the higher ups need to realize is that the reason why so many people watch the highlights is because we don't. I'm not saying I'm going to say we, but I'm going to be the ambassador of poor people.
I thought you were going to say young people.
Young people as well. But this sport is considered to be an elitist sport, which I love. It's classy. It's like the bourgeoisie. It's supposed to be a sport that like represents high class, and that's amazing. But the reason why the highlights are so popular is because I know so many people around me who don't have necessarily the ways of watching a race or of always tuning in. Some people work on Sundays, some people, or they just don't have the means to, and the money to buy a subscription for F1 TV. I'm lucky that my friend decided to be nice enough to give me her password, and I'm lucky enough that my dad pays for a streaming service that streams F1, but not everyone has that luck. And I think that a lot of people rely on the highlights because they still want to watch racing. And yes, we're in an era with like capitalism and consumerism where everything has to go fast and we change. But I think this is the one moment where everyone agrees that it's fun to tune in for 2 hours of your day and just focus on racing. I've seen a lot of people on the internet talk about the fact that they always tune in for the 24 hours of Le Mans, and they always tune in for like endurance races, which last longer than a F1 race. And making them shorter is not the answer. And it doesn't make them more exciting. We've seen it with sprint races. Sprint races are the proof that a shorter race is not more exciting and does not make people want to tune in more on those races. And I think that this is what the higher ups, the FIA, the people of this world who think that need to realize that not everyone has the same access to F1. And until you democratize, I'll say it like that, this access, then yeah, maybe the highlights are going to be more popular, but it does not mean anything. If you actually talk to the public, ask for their opinion, you'll see that, well, no, people don't necessarily enjoy highlights more because they're quicker. It's just because it's the one way they can watch racing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've had to watch highlights this season. You know, when we're away, I can't tune into Sky whilst I'm out the country. I can't get into Sky at the F1 channel because I'm from the UK, so I can't get a subscription to that. Please open that up in 2031, please, begging you, because I really want to. I'd rather give you my money directly, F1, rather than Sky. Anyway, I've had to tune into highlights, and it's not because I want to. It's just because, as you say, they're available. I can't watch a full race, so I've just got to watch the highlights. And one of the times it was just because, again, I was at my parents' house. They hadn't recorded it on Sky. You know, it's difficult to do now because you record it on the Skybox. Well, what if you're not watching through the Skybox? You can't record it. So we had to watch the Channel 4 highlights that were on. I would choose every day of the week to watch the full race. Now, like, we're the avid fan. We're talking like most people that would watch the full race. It's like I watch Match of the Day sometimes to watch, I'm going to say soccer rather than football, just to make you feel part of the chat. It's football. They use their feet. But
you know what? I've started using football more and more as I'm talking to more and more European people and like got more into F1. I've started to say football, and one of my friend who is Canadian Moroccan, but she corrects me every time I say soccer. She's like, it's football, and you'll get it right.
Excellent. Right, so football.
No need to accommodate me.
Excellent. Oh God, I hate accommodating people. So
I know, right?
football. So football, right? Just because I watch Match of the Day, because I'm like a more casual football fan, just because people tune in and like football games being 10 minutes long doesn't mean, oh, we should maybe make football games 60 minutes long and kick people out the stadiums earlier. It's insane, because then Match of the Day isn't as good when you've only got 10 minutes from a 60-minute match. You've got to find 10 minutes, which means more filler, more of the stuff in between. It'd be the same with the race. If you go, okay, well, people are only watching 30 minutes of a 90-minute race. The irony, of course, being that this was the quickest race ever, a minute, 1 hour 13. And you're trying to find 30 minutes of highlights in it. I mean, yeah, as you say, shorten it down to half an hour and then find half an hour of highlights. Well, that's just the full race. And people aren't going to be as interested in that. And they're going to go, well, what am I paying for? So, yeah, this is one of the things that feels like they should lock down certain rules. And I think the race distance, the race time, that's one of them. Tick. Don't touch that. That's fundamental. It's got almost the level of like Bernie Ecclestone when he used to go like, oh, we could have medals. Oh, what about sprinkler system? You know, just sat there just going, just no. As you say, talk to the fans, look online at the reaction. Honestly, this isn't going to happen. I hope it's not going to happen. Like pandering to people that, you know, as you say, might not have the money to watch the live feed or the full feed, or just not the time in their day. You know, people are busy. People are doing things. You know, so yeah. I almost didn't want to bring it up, but it's almost so silly that it had to be brought up. Really,
I think that in a world, and especially in the F1 world, where there's so many other issues to solve, this is not one, and this is not the priority.
They do this though,
nowhere near. This is nowhere near priority. It's just a distraction to distract the fans from the actual issues.
It's all a deflection. Like, oh, we'll shorten the races so that we don't have to talk about McLaren botching pit stops.
it's all the deflection, and I hate it because it's painfully obvious that this is what they're doing. And yeah, I've had people around me. I've had my best friend who works on Sunday mornings, and here in Canada, most of the European races happen Sunday mornings, so she can't catch the races. So she's like, yeah, I'm going to watch the highlights. And then last Sunday, she came to my house and she was like, I'm going to watch the highlights. I was like, hey, just watch the full race with me. And that's what we did. But not everyone has access to this. And well, if they do continue talking about it and decide to make the races shorter, which I will be very disappointed, but it might happen, then at least make the races less expensive. If you decrease the time spent at the track, decrease your prices, because your prices have been increasing and the broadcast prices have been increasing. So if you're about to make a decrease on the content, well, make a decrease on the prices. I think it's only fair for us, the fans, paying a lot of money, very, very much, to watch these races, whether it be online or at the track.
Amen to that. Yes. Let's make it less elitist if we're going to pander to the less elitist fan. Yeah. Right, got to wrap up. Towards wrapping up, there was an Italian Grand Prix. We have spoken about it a bit earlier. Max did very well. So when I ask you this question, please think of the other 19 drivers that also did very well. Eddie, driver of the weekend, doesn't have to be Max Verstappen, probably will be. And your highlight of the weekend, again, doesn't have to be Max Verstappen and winning by 19 seconds.
Honestly, I will say that I think that my driver of the weekend, I will surprise you with that one, is Isaac Hadjar. Okay. Starts from pit lane, starts from the back, manages to sneak into the points. I think that's amazing. And honestly, yes, it's a bit of I'll call it downgrade from last weekend, but he still continues to prove over and over again that he has potential and he is a good driver and he has his place in F1. And maybe he didn't get a podium this time, but he still had, in my opinion, a really good race. Am I saying this also not to say Max Verstappen? Absolutely. But no, honestly, I think Isaac's had an amazing race, and I think he needs a little bit of like recognition as well. So
Hopefully
yeah.
not the Red Bull drive.
No, let's not. I will fight for him not to get downgraded to Red Bull.
Yeah. So what was your highlight of the weekend then as well?
My highlight of the weekend. Oh, well, the Max win it kind of healed something in me a little bit.
Oh, such a that was so predictable. I can't believe you've done this.
I know, I'm such a predictable person.
It was,
But
to be fair, pretty good.
when I tell you, when he got pole, I was a little bit screaming in my living room, watching with the TV alone. My cat was there judging me a little bit, and I was really happy. And then when he won the race, again, was screaming, sending voice messages to my friends, especially one who could not watch the race, so she was counting on me for updates. And again, my only companion was my cat, so I felt a little bit of judgment. Maybe he's a McLaren fan. We'll have to discuss about that. But but I think this is the highlight of the weekend. As predictable as it is.
That's fine. I'll allow it, I guess. My driver of the weekend was Max Verstappen. No, I genuinely, I think winning, as I said, winning by 19 seconds at a track like this, I don't think that's easy to do with like whatever happened behind. I mean, the race was only an hour 13 long, so we had less time as well to pull that gap out, and it was 6 seconds, like maybe 38 laps, I think, when he pitted. So he extended most of that gap in the last few laps, you know, when he sort of extreme undercut on the two McLarens that sort of goal hanged in case there was a safety car. So he just quietly went about his business. As I say, he was more mature. That's why I want to give it to him, was for that mature level-headedness at turn one. There wasn't a collision. He didn't get involved in fights. He didn't need to at that point, and then clinically got the move back past on Lando without it being in any way controversial. And then having that moment on the team radio as well. He seemed to be enjoying himself. So my highlight of the weekend, as I said, this podium. I love this podium here. I have to caveat it with the booing of Lando when he went on the podium. Now, it may have been because of the team orders, but I also think that there's a lot of beef. There's a lot of hatred from the Charles Leclerc sort of fan base. Yeah. So seeing Lando up there probably isn't great at his, obviously his sort of team's home race. So I wonder if it was that, because Piastri didn't get booed for letting him through. So it kind of makes me think it wasn't the team orders that led to it. Nonetheless, Max getting up on that podium and them doing do and that doing that. I think this is the best podium of the year, and having them all do that. And then Rosberg was on there for Sky for one afterwards, and he's riling them all up. And again, they're doing the Seven Nation Army, you know. Oh, Nico. Brilliant.
It was really nice to see, because a lot of fans, and obviously I'm a newer fan, so I can't say me included, but with the videos that I've seen and everything, people remember Max being booed on by the Tifosi and hated on and threatened by the Tifosi, and to see it being completely turned around this weekend and having the Tifosi sing the Max Verstappen song and cheer for the Dutch anthem, it was nice. It was nice to see. And it's, I think, in a season where like you've had like a lot of like controversies and like, you know, the fans are very passionate, and to be like at a place like Monza where the fans are passionate like this, to see this, I think it's amazing. And
it's the beginning of his Vettel arc.
Yeah,
Vettel won 4 championships. He was very much the villain, the finger. Everyone hated it. And then the next thing, he goes to Ferrari, and people start to turn around to the idea that he's actually a nice guy. Then he goes to Aston Martin, and it's full on. He is the love child of Formula One. Oh my God. How could anyone hate on this man? He's just so Vettel, you know. And you think, no, no. 8 years ago, he was the enemy. He's the enemy. He's Vettel, So Verstappen might be on that arc. He might be thinking, no, I need people to like me. He's got the crowd riled up beneath him. Maybe he joins Ferrari and starts that redemption next.
I am sorry, but Max Verstappen will never join Ferrari. I think he will scare the poor team. But to come back on the booing of Lando real quick, I thought it was kind of sad to see. In hockey, it's very common for fans, especially in Montreal, to boo the players. We are very great at holding grudges. So whenever you have a player you don't like, yes, anytime he has the puck, he's going to get booed automatically. It's not even a question. But in F1, I think in this case as well, it's the fact that it was not Lando's fault. And I think this is what kind of like threw me off, gave me the ick of the booing. I was like, normally I'm all for a good boo and it's fun, and sometimes it's just banter. But in this situation specifically, it did not have its place, especially in such an elitist sport like this. Like, you're supposed to be classy, you're supposed to be the better man, the better fan. And I think it was not really fun to see. And I think the booing should go maybe to McLaren, if booing there has to be. But no, it does not have this place in this sport, and especially when it's not the driver's fault. And I'm glad to see that people are calling other fans out for this. But I have to ask, like, where was this energy when, like, fans in Silverstone, for example, would boo Verstappen and send death threats and, boo him and cheer on his crash in Silverstone 2021? Where was the same energy?
Are you calling me out?
Not you specifically, but
I thought you were saying, like, where was your energy? Where did you say this?
No, I just see people online
mean.
saying that's absolutely vile that the fans are booing Lando, and I'm like, yeah, absolutely. But where was this energy when the same thing happened to Max all these years ago, or over the years? Like, where was the same energy against booing and against hating a driver to the point of sending death threats online?
Yeah, it can't be silenced. Like,
no.
You can't just go, well, it's not against my driver, so I'm just going to choose to ignore it. I've always been against it. I don't think it's right, whoever it is, whether you like the guy, whether you like the team. It's not right. But so way to finish a negative. The idea of finishing with the highlight of the weekend, by the way, is that it's nice and positive. And Absolutely. Here we are talking about booing.
I'm sorry, I just had to bring it up a little bit.
So thanks for that. So we'll end on the positive of, as it was, the singing to Max Verstappen of the. I'm not going to do it again. The do Max Verstappen. I love that song. I'm starting to love that song. I'm not bad, but I love that song. Anyway, we need to wrap it up before this hits an hour and a half. Eddie, thank you so much for joining me once more. We'll have you back on soon, I'm sure. In the meantime, I'm going to link to everything else. Thank you again for asking me how I am.
No problem. I can always do that if you want.
It'll be like a feature. How is Perry this week? Yes, fantastic guest as always. Bringing some mixed views to my McLaren. Apparently, I'm biased towards McLaren, but anyway, yeah, it was very nice to have you on, and opinions always appreciated. So until next week, as I say, I've got something lined up. It's not specifically a racing series. I've got someone special coming on. So if you do want to know who that is, then you're going to have to tune in. You have to follow. You have to do all that boring stuff, I'm afraid, because I'm not very good at getting on social media and sharing.
I will stay tuned in on this, and I will be quite disappointed if you don't bring on Max Verstappen on the podcast next week. I really hope it's what's going to be.
Yeah. It's not Franz Hermann either, unfortunately.
Ah, mate.
He said no. Anyway, not Franz Hermann, not Max Verstappen. But I hope it's not disappointing.
I'm sure it will not be disappointing.
You negative again.
I said I'm sure it will not be disappointing.
Fine.
What's the negativity in this?
I thought it was like, it will be.
No.
Right, I'm reading this for myself. Why am I doing this? Anyway, thank you very much for listening and tuning in. And wherever you're listening from, I hope you have a wonderful day. Goodbye.